After having seen a summary of the business plan or a recap of the business plan, let's now go to the marketing plan. As we mentioned in our recap, the first thing that you're going to do is complete an industry analysis even before you go into your marketing plan. And the reason is that you want to have sufficient knowledge of the environment that can impact your marketing strategy. So you will start with the widest assessment of environmental and industry trends, and then proceed to the more detailed information. So it'll be like an upside down pyramid. You can also use a SWOT analysis to allow you to understand your competition's strengths and weaknesses. And so for this, you're going to need to do some research. But this is an important part of preparing for your business plan, because you're going to be securing information on the customer's needs, competitive strengths and weaknesses, price, promotion, distribution. So in essence, you have to take a deep dive into the industry so that you know exactly where your product would be placed within all of that mix. Next, you'll go into a competitor analysis. You will begin documenting the strategy of each primary competitor. If your industry has several competitors, then select the ones that are your closest competitors, meaning the ones that sell the most similar product to yours. So you would need to use as much public information as possible. You'll be needing to use the internet, of course. You can use a library using databases like the ones that are listed in the chapter from last week. You'll also go into social media pages. If your competitors have a brick and mortar store, you might want to go and do a mystery shop. And then once you have summarized your strategy, then you can begin to identify the strengths and weaknesses of each competitor. Now, this is going to help you in positioning your company. Let's talk about the research that you'll need to do. So you'll need to be putting some work to do some research. And after you have done the initial research of your competitors, you may feel like you have enough information, but you may not. So it's important not to skip this part. Even if you feel, oh, I already know my competitors, I know how much they're charging, blah, blah, blah. Do your research. Do your primary research, because you may find out some things that you don't know yet. And you may not, but you need to do the due diligence just to be sure. So what are you going to be trying to collect? You'll be trying to collect information such as who is going to be buying my product or service? What is the size of the market? What price will I charge? What is the most appropriate distribution strategy? What about the promotion? How will I be promoting my product? Now, this research, you may conduct it or you may hire somebody else to conduct it. How does it begin? So your marketing research first will begin by defining the objectives. What are you looking for as a product of the research that you will be conducting? Some objectives could be, I want to know what people think about my product. I want to know how much customers would be willing to pay. I want to know where customers would prefer to purchase my product. And I want to know where they would want to hear about my product. You can also gather data from secondary sources. And for this, like we mentioned, you can go online and you can go on national and state websites. Let's talk about gathering data from primary sources. Gathering data from primary sources would involve potentially observation. So this is if you go to your competition's store and you see what's happening, how are people being helped, What are some of the workflows that you see in progress? You can also use networking, so you can talk to people that are in the industry. And you can also interview. So you can interview potential customers, you can organize focus groups. And for this, you will need a data collection instrument, right? So make it really standard. So for example, if you're going to go and do a mystery shop for each of your competitors, create a form so that you gather the same information for each one of your competitors. If you're going to be talking to potential customers, make sure that you have your instrument ready, your questionnaire, so that you're asking people the same questions. That way you can later tabulate the data. So after you've done your research, you'll need to analyze and interpret the results. This is the quote-unquote boring part of the step here, would be entering the data, actually tabulating it. Now the fun part comes when you start summarizing the answers, because then that's when you're going to start finding out some things that perhaps you didn't know, or some things that are going to guide your strategy. Here's where you do all the filtering, all the grouping, all the sorting and so on, so that you can get more information. So sort them by this target group, or sort them by age, or sort them by where people live, and so on. What are the differences between a marketing plan and a business plan? Well, first of all, the marketing plan is just one part of the business plan. So the marketing plan is focusing on promoting, distributing, pricing your product, whereas the business plan is a roadmap for the entire organization. This is your entire roadmap, where you are right now, where you're going to be in 6 months, where you're going to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years. The marketing plan is really important to the business plan, but it also stands alone. Both of them are living documents that you continuously have to reevaluate and keep changing and keep updating. The marketing plan has several important functions or purposes. Number one, it tells the reader how the entrepreneur is going to compete and how are they going to operate in the marketplace. It also talks about the strategies that they're going to be using to get customers, and also the costs that are associated with the strategies. This is important because then it allows you to see how much money from your financial projections you're going to need. So they're going to help you put together a budget. All in all, the marketing plan at the end should answer these questions. Where have we been? So if it's used as a standalone document, it should talk a little bit about the company background, strengths and weaknesses, completion background, marketplace opportunities and threats. And when it's in the business plan, it needs to talk about the marketplace history, marketing strengths and weaknesses, market opportunities and threats. Where do we want to go in the short term? Here you want to make sure that your marketing plan answers what are your objectives, what are your goals for the next 12 months. And then, of course, if you're writing a business plan, you also want to know what happens after that in the first year, second year, and third year. How do we get there? So here's where you will talk about your specific marketing strategy. What are you going to be implementing? So your promotion strategies, who is going to distribute your products, how are you going to be advertising, and so on. So here's an outline for your marketing plan. You'll have the situation analysis, the background, your SWOT analysis, and then your objectives and goals for your marketing plan, your strategy and action programs. This is your implementation plan, budgets, and then how are you going to be evaluating and reevaluating the plan. What are the characteristics of a marketing plan? First, we need to make sure that we are aware of the marketing system. The marketing system meaning all of those external variables that impact our marketing plan. External variables would include the economy, the political structure, technology, and so on. For example, the pandemic was part of the system that we would have needed to take into account if we were launching a business in 2020. Internal variables may depend on the type of venture, but they need to include financial resources such as the supplier availability, the expertise of management, and so on. So what is an effective marketing plan? So it needs to give you a strategy so that you accomplish the mission. It needs to be factual and data-driven. It needs to describe your organization, and it needs to provide for continuity. So it cannot be just what are you going to do to advertise at launch, right? It needs to be an actual plan that is at least a year. It needs to be short, but it also needs to be flexible. It needs to specify performance criteria that you can monitor. This figure shows us an overview of the marketing system. And this is what we said is important for us to understand before we prepare the marketing plan. So we need to talk about the external and internal variables. External variables would include economy, the political structure, and so on. Internal variables may depend on the type of venture, but include financial resources, supplier availability, expertise of management, and company goals or objectives. So factors in the external environment and factors in the internal environment, they both feed into the marketing mix decisions. In other words, the marketing mix decisions you make will be influenced by how much and what you know about the external environment and the internal environment. And what are those marketing mix decisions? Well, they would be any decisions that you make in regards to the product, price, distribution, or promotion. Once your marketing mix decisions go into a marketing plan and that plan gets implemented, it is important that you get feedback because you need to know what worked to continue doing that and what didn't so that you can make changes. So what exactly are the decisions that you need to make for your marketing mix? We said that they have to do with the product, the price, the distribution, and the promotion. So regarding the product, you will need to make decisions as to what materials you will use, what style, what options, and so on. Regarding the price, you will need to make an analysis before you decide as to where you will be pricing your product, what kind of image do you want to project, because obviously price projects a certain image of your product, credit terms, payment period, and so on. Regarding the channels of distribution, how will you be distributing your product? Will you use wholesalers? Will you use retailers? Will you be limited to a certain geographic area, and so on? For promotion, you'll need to make decisions regarding where to put a message regarding your product. How much is your media budget? Will you be having promotions? Will you have coupons? Will you be using social media, and so on? So anytime that we talk about the marketing mix, we are not talking about only promotion, which is what people typically think about when they think about marketing. Instead, when we say marketing mix, we are talking about all of the decisions, again, that have to do with product, price, distribution, and promotion. So to prepare your marketing plan, first you'll need to do a situation analysis. And this is, as we said, a review of where the company has been and considering specifically any environmental and industry analysis factors that may impact your business. Here's where you would define the target market. And at this step, you would need to have a good idea of who is your customer or who is your target market. So first, you will need to segment the market, meaning divide it into smaller homogeneous groups, and then decide which of these groups will you be wanting to focus on. The reason you do that is so that if you are focusing on just one group, then you can delve deeper into their needs and you can serve them better instead of responding to the needs of everyone. So for instance, if you are opening a restaurant, to say, yes, I'm going to serve everyone in San Antonio, may not give you what you need in terms of really identifying your market. So specifically, who are you serving? What times are you open, right? Are you serving business people or is it for families and so on? So make sure you think about this carefully. Having a target customer illuminates some of those decisions, because based on who your customer is, your decisions for your marketing mix will be different. You also need to define your marketing strategy and your action plan. The marketing strategy and action plan answers the question, how are we going to get there? Your product is a product or service. In this section, you need to describe your product or your service more than just the physical characteristics. So really give a story specifically as to what this product or service, what needs are they in response to? How are they helping solve a problem, or how are they helping your customer? You also need to talk about packaging, price, service, unique buying options, setting the venture apart from competitors, and like I said before, how is your product or service meeting the needs of your target customer? Let's talk about pricing. So prior to setting the price, you will need to consider some elements. Specifically, you will need to consider costs, your margin or markup, and your competition. You cannot do the pricing in a vacuum. You will need to add the unit costs of overhead to the cost of manufacture or cost of goods to determine the final price. But you'll also need to consider competition and overall positioning before you come to a conclusion as to what your final price will be. Depending on your industry, there may be a standard markup. So you would figure this out by going to trade publications or just asking suppliers if there's already a standard markup that you should be considering. Of course, if you figure out that there is a standard markup and you decide to do your markup smaller, this may help you in the short term, especially at launch. Also, if your product has unique benefits, then of course you may be able to charge a higher price. If your product is innovative, it has something new that hasn't been seen before, that would also warrant a higher price. However, if it's a non-differentiated product, then the only other justification for having a higher markup would be the type of services or additional services that you provide to your customer. For example, free delivery or repair if something breaks and so on. Regarding distribution is what makes the product convenient to purchase when you need it or when the customer needs it. For your channels of distribution, if your market is concentrated, then you might want to think about direct sales or selling directly to the customer or a retailer. If the market is dispersed across a wide geographic area, then the use of a longer channel, meaning perhaps going from a wholesaler to a retailer, may be necessary. Also, depending on what your product is, your distribution decision may be different. For instance, if your product is perishable, this will impact your channel decision. Now, middlemen, such as wholesalers and retailers, can add value to the product. However, they will also add costs. Having said that, their costs tend to be lower because they typically operate on economies of scale, and so they can help you with providing storage, delivery, and so on. That would be difficult for somebody who's just starting up. Option would be to work through manufacturers' representatives or brokers. If you're working with representatives, they would typically earn a commission once they make a sale, but they wouldn't physically hold the product or have inventory. Brokers are similar, and they are more common in food or dry good businesses. They represent an effective source of market data and a way to reach the target market that is cost effective. Brokers act as intermediaries between buyers and sellers, and their position is neutral. So their focus is on facilitating the transaction. They don't take title to goods, and they get a commission or a fee once they complete a sale. Now, they often work with a variety of clients and deal with a wide range of products or services. However, representatives, they tend to be more exclusive. So they establish a closer relationship with the manufacturers. Let's talk about promotion. The entrepreneur needs to inform customers about the product's availability. And for this, you'll use advertising media, such as print, radio, TV, social media, and electronic media. Use of the internet and social media, they can be effective, and they can be a lot cheaper than media advertising. People still use direct mail. Also think about trade magazines. You'll have to evaluate each alternative to see how effective they are at meeting your objectives. Lastly, we cannot forget about social media networks because they can be very valuable to create awareness and promote products. So for this, you would need to not just have a presence on social media, but think about partnering with influencers. You also need to make a decision about your marketing strategy. Will your model be B2B or business to business, or will you be selling directly to the consumer? You will need to reserve some of your budget for the marketing strategy. What's a reasonable budget? So you would have to think about it in terms of a percentage of forecasted revenue. According to Small Business Administration, this would be anywhere between 12 and 20% of your forecasted revenue. Then you would need to provide a breakdown of marketing costs. How much money are you going to be spending on sales costs, website development, different advertising campaigns, and so on? Budgeting for the marketing strategy will feed into your financial plan. So having a marketing plan or having an implementation plan for a marketing plan is a commitment. But just keep in mind that making adjustments to this implementation plan is necessary. So you need to keep monitoring that. Lastly, it is important for you to be prepared for contingencies. And be sure to assign someone in your team the responsibility of coordinating and making sure that the plan is implemented according to what you have agreed. What will you be monitoring? This will depend on the specific goals and objectives. So for each part of your marketing plan, say for example, you have the planning of your advertising campaigns on different mediums. For each of them, you should have some type of a goal. And so once you have that goal, when everything's said and done, you need to go back and make sure that you review and see if your campaigns have been effective. And not just with advertising, right? So with the entire marketing plan, you should be always evaluating according to the objectives that you have set. So let's take a look at an actual business plan. In this case, we have a business plan for a business called Pegasus Travel. And this is just a sample. I will make this available to you so that you can read it. I showed this on the presentation already, this first page, the introduction page. Then you have the executive summary, 1, 2, 3 pages. And then you go into the industry outlook. And as you can see, let me make this bigger. As you can see, they're using a lot of data. Of the pitches that we saw last week, SwiftSkew, they seem to me to be very knowledgeable about their business. They use lots of data, but they also used insights because they were deeply knowledgeable of the business that they were trying to help with the point of sale system. So my point is use data, but also use what you know about the industry, about your target consumer. So here's the data that they produced. And they talked about the forecast, market segmentation, and specifically about their target market. Not just who they are, but why they selected that target market. They discussed their competitive sectors. They had several paragraphs on that. And their competitive advantage. A description of their product. Their operational plan. So this is how they're going to get it to the customer. And here comes the marketing plan. So first, the goals and objectives. What is the goal and objective of the company? In this case, they want to become the largest B2 consumer product and account for 38% of the travel market by a certain year. And how much on sales do they want to achieve? How are they going to get there? So what are some of the main strategies? Strengths and weaknesses. This is important. Strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. So they did their SWOT analysis. More strategies. A section on pricing, distribution and promotion. Distribution, explaining how their product will get to their customers. And then promotion. How are they going to be marketing their product or their service? In this case, they provided some information, but not too much. It was kind of surface. If you have more information, for sure, make sure that you provide it. And that wraps up the marketing plan section of the business plan. Next week, we'll go over organizational plan, but we'll stop here. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Bye.